Good morning, everyone. So, the title of my lesson this morning is Yet. Yet. So, I want you to say that to yourself, yet. So, yet usually comes and connects with something negative and something that moves into something positive, something that moves from something painful into something comforting. So, the word yet. So, all the ways we use yet as that conjunction to connect, that conjunction to tie things together. So, yet usually connects something negative to something positive, something painful to something comforting. The word yet appears in the Bible approximately 395 times. Yet. So today I want to talk about the curiosities of COVID-19 and the curiosities of the movement. The curiosity of COVID-19 and the curiosity of the civil rights movement that is currently happening in Louisville, Kentucky, and that was brought to our attention by the murder of Breonna Taylor. The curiosity of COVID-19 and the movement. The negative, the yet, and then the something positive, the painful, and yet the something comforting. We may not be at the complete of the comfort, and hopefully we'll never really feel comforting and comforted in the things that we've experienced, because I think that that keeps us on edge and a bit alive. So COVID-19 to me has taught me to be quiet. So the onset of COVID-19 happened around March. My daughter and I had been traveling to Oklahoma. We were on our way back to the city, and we had no idea that things were closing down early. We had planned to go on vacation, and while we were on vacation, of course, you clean out your refrigerator. There's no food at the house because you're going to be away. And so we came back to Louisville, and the stores were closing early. There wasn't food on the shelves, those kind of things. And so gradually we started staying inside and self-quarantining. What we thought may be a few weeks has turned into over a year. And so during this time of going inside our homes, inside our minds, the uncertainty of what was going to happen with COVID-19, we learned that when we shut our mouths, the virus doesn't spread in the same way as when we're running our mouths. So we learned that when we shut up, those molecules that come out of your mouth that cause illness to someone else, they're kind of trapped inside. And so simultaneously, this movement started happening also in Louisville and across the nation. And so there was this tension between shutting our mouths and speaking up. And so the yet, the usually connecting something negative with something positive, something painful with something comforting, and knowing that we just couldn't shut up and we were going to take the chance during a pandemic and hit the streets. Being sick and tired with COVID-19 and being sick and tired with racism in Kentucky. And holding these two tensions simultaneously, yet. The COVID-19 and us learning that people were dying, people were losing their lives, and we didn't fully understand what was happening. There weren't any masks in the stores when we returned back home. We didn't know what to put over our faces, what not to put over our faces. This tenuous time, do we take to the street with the tear gas and with the National Guard? Do we stay at home? And we just couldn't sit still. There was this uneasiness that was real, that was rising up in us. The yet, I need to go out here and I need to make a change. And then there's this thing where people are dying and it's uncertain, and people of color are really dying because there's already this disproportionality. So it was this death that was also there, but also there was this death of dying to our old self and living in a new way. and this possible this resurrection that could happen. If we take to the streets and we say that this is wrong, if we wear our mask and mask up and still speak up, what happens? The yet, wanting positive things to happen. We want positive change. And so I remember having conversations with Reverend Val. I remember how I felt watching posts on the internet and my feelings of discouragement. And I was saying, where is unity? Where is my church? Where is my home that is downtown that's right here? Where do I go? Where do I turn? What is happening here? And the yet. And the feeling the negative in that and also feeling the positive in that, because throughout all the bumps of belonging to Unity and being one of very few people of color that belong to Unity after Reverend Susan Ingpool left, that was the best. Knowing that I still belong to this place, but they were bypassing me. They were bypassing my experience of trauma, my experience of race in the church, my experience of race in my community. It was, this is happening, but God is so much bigger than this. And it was the callback to me that God is, yet this is the realm that we live in. And the realm that we live in also has to be addressed simultaneously. We just can't bypass the Black folks and the brown folks and the indigenous folks and the other people of color. We can't just go around and say, but God is. So the yet that usually connects something negative with something positive, something painful to something comforting. And so I work as a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm very sex positive. I'm all about inclusion. I'm all about love. I'm all about equity. I'm all about all these things. Yet I had this righteous anger, the same righteous anger that I had when I stood at the Jeffersontown Kroger when the Black folks were murdered in the Kroger. The same righteous anger. And so we say we have to manage our anger and all these kind of things. And I say you can feel a range of emotion because these are all gifts. We are mind, we are spirit, we are emotion, we are physical. And so let's tie all these things together, because when we tie all these things together, we can't bypass these things. The movement, the civil rights movement, the COVID-19, the mask that we wore before we had to wear the mask, the spiritual bypassing that we did before these issues are constantly thrown in our face, that I say universe is saying that we have to address. Because we've manifested these errors. We've created these errors. This land that we're standing on right now in Anchorage, this was indigenous folks' land. This is blood land. We have to acknowledge these things in order to heal from these things, in order to build the beautiful city. We have to imagine the unlimited possibilities of what we can be when we're honest with one another. So typically, when someone asks you, how are you doing? What is the response? Okay, fine. I see a thumbs up. That's what we say. And so I say that that's a mask that we wear because we're not being honest about what we're experiencing. And so the truth of the matter is that we can hold space for people that aren't fine, that aren't thumbs up. But instead, we often just spiritually bypass those feelings, those emotions, those things that people are experiencing. And there's no need for that. There's enough room for all that. The yet, the usually connecting something negative to something positive, something painful to something comforting. And the willingness to take off the mask, to be honest with people in a trusting community about what you're experiencing, and that people can hold space for that. And so I say that it's time for people to call in spaces, to create spaces who attempt to avoid and turn away. Ending relationships. Oh my goodness. If we've learned during COVID, so many relationships have ended, have shifted, have changed because these people don't wear masks and these people don't take it seriously and these people don't believe that COVID is real. We've lost a lot of friends too. These people don't believe racism is real. This really wasn't an issue. This happened and that's why the police responded this way. But if it was a dog and the police went in a home and shot, if it was a dog that the police put their knee on the dog's neck for 10 minutes, I have 10 minutes left of time to talk. So hold that space for that 9 minutes that that knee was on that neck. And if it was a dog, our nation would have lost it. There would have been no spiritual bypassing for that. And we are humans. I am a human. And so sometimes I've had the experience at Unity downtown where people are like, who are you? Oh my goodness, you're visiting? I've even had the previous reverend ask me that probably 30 times when he saw me over his course of his time there. And so then I hear the colorblind. I'm colorblind. I don't see your color. Oh, that is an insult to me. You don't see this? People go to Suntan City for this. People go to Florida and pull back their band and show the difference in their complexion. But somehow this is avoided. You don't see me? You're colorblind? That's not okay. You don't see my full lips, but people get collagen injections for them. I know who I am. I know that I'm beauty, and it's bypassed. I know who my people are. I know we're resilient. I know we're strong, and we're bypassed. So I say today the ending of relationships because people don't believe that certain things are. That COVID is, that racism is. And I stand before you and I say that they are. In this realm, they are. And in Unity, I've learned the dis-ease. And so COVID is dis-ease created out of error. Racism, sexism, ableism, dis-ease created out of error. And so acknowledging our error so that something can shift and so that something can change. These dis-eases being manifested as our errors. So, creating this beautiful city, creating this beautiful spirit, this beautiful mind, these beautiful emotions, this beautiful physical. Malcolm X said, you cannot separate peace from freedom because no one can be at peace unless there's freedom. Freedom here on our earth. Yet, usually connecting something negative to something positive, something painful to something comforting. Our source, our God, our universe, our creations, and that we are created in the image of God, we as total, our differences, our similarities, and our differences. You gotta have differences for an ecosystem to even survive. But somehow we like to bypass the differences. But the differences are fine and wonderful, and someone said that they weren't, and we started believing it, and that there's limited resources, and so then there's this fight for them, and we know with this new thought, with this metaphysical thought, that there is no limit in the universe. And so as these people that hold this particular thought, I think that we have a particular investment in the healing and the beauty of the new city and in the imagination and in the imagining of it and in the yet of it. In the negative of it that can be transformed into something positive of it, in the pain of it to be transformed into something good. And that as a person of color, as an indigenous person, as people of color, as people in this community, we have a place, and this is our place, and our differences are wonderful and great and to be acknowledged. And if we aren't certain what to say, if COVID has taught us nothing else, that it's okay to keep our mouths shut. And if we don't have something to say and it's something that we don't understand, go Google it. Go talk to somebody that shares a similar complexion to you about it. Because black folks are pretty exhausted about explaining stuff to people. Okay? And so when it's this kind of situation and I'm here to explain and this is the lesson, I will gracefully do that. But then when I'm at Trader Joe's and you see me, which is also its own set of stuff, but where do we shop? You know, when there's a food desert in the West End, where do the people shop? And so mind, body, spirit, emotion, and finances. Okay? So the mask is the presence of pretending, and the mask is also the presence of safety. Because we need these things for right now. We don't know how long we're going to need these things for right now. So holding these two tensions, the pretending and also the safety, the acknowledgement of racism, and that you can't spiritual bypass this thing no more. We just cannot. Surely goodness and mercy. So the song that I chose this morning was Donnie McClurkin's Great is Thy Mercy. Great is thy mercy for me. God's loving kindness towards me. And that being my birthright, and I want my reparations, and I want my peace, and I want to be able to tell my own narrative without somebody else benefiting from it. I want to be able to sing my own song. I want justice. I want love. I want to live without fear. I want to live in boldness. I want to live in truth. I want to live in bravery. I want white folks to protect me. Because if you're protecting me from racism, you're protecting me from one of your people being racist towards me. I want boldness. I want to be physically and financially and emotionally and spiritually and physically fit for this lifetime. I want to be whole. I want to be alive. I want my daughters to be alive. I want my friends to be alive. I want to know that white folks got my back and got our back, especially in this particular spiritual community that talks about manifestation, that talks about the course of miracles, that talks about this higher being and creating and being made in the image of God. We have a lot of power in the city, and I've not seen us use it. Not in the way that would be satisfying as a checklist like Unity showed up, y'all. But I've seen some really great efforts. When the white flag was out and Unity of Louisville was open downtown, oh my God, Leah. Oh my God, Valerie. I was so happy I couldn't wait to get to church. What do y'all need? What do you need? And I came by, probably every other night just to check in, put my head in the door and just see that the lights were on and the space was being utilized, because I think that space is sacred. I went into labor in that space and on a Sunday and left, and later on that evening had my 13-year-old. Reverend Susan Ingpool with Valerie present christened my baby on that stage downtown. I had my 40th birthday party in the activity center 8 years ago. That space is sacred. We got some work to do, y'all. And sometimes we got to sit down and rest, and we got to tag team some other people in. But spiritually, we can do this. Physically, we can do this. Emotionally, we can do this. Financially, we can do this. So in closing, I want to share Lamentations 3:19 through 26. The thought of my suffering and homelessness is bitter beyond words. I will never forget this awful time as I grieve over my loss. Yet I still dare to hope when I remember this. The faithful love of God never ends. God's mercy never ceases. Great is God's faithfulness, God's mercy being afresh every morning. And so it is.